Around Gadfly, do I broadcast so close together? But I had a conversation with Judd. What was it on Friday? I think it was. And then from Friday to Saturday, all of a sudden, all this news broke. This is Judd Saul, producer of Enemies Within the Church. I really encourage you to go back and listen to the interview that I did with him a couple days ago, because it went into his creative process and the fact that he's a producer. He's not just a firebrand. I mean, he actually has good skills when it comes to making movies, and he makes good creative choices. But right now, the story is the politics, because we had that discussion about his film, which is called Enemies Within the Church, and it's about problems of censorship and problems of repression and forced Marxism inside of the church and persecution of the people in the church who are truth tellers. He made that film. And then something happened on Saturday with some people who are devoted to the film, who went to a conference at Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary on Saturday. And then can you tell us what happened, Judd?
Okay, so what happened was it was like 2 months ago, we were pursued by a group called Citizens for America to sponsor their event. And we said, okay, we'll sponsor our event, and we'll do it predicated on the fact that your event will show the film. And I was like, have you seen the film? And the guy loved the film. The guy who ran the event, Chris Hughes, loved the film and says, yes, that would be awesome. They were excited to show the film at their event. Right. And they billed it for a couple months. Hey, Enemies Within the Church is going to be here. Trevor Loudon, who's part of our film, is going to be speaking, and we're going to show the film. So what happened is a week out before the event, we get a call that Dr. Spradlin from Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary wants to cancel the showing of the film, or is insisting that we not show the film, that the film's not allowed to be shown at the event. So we're like, what in the world? Because a few months ago, Dr. Spradlin took some heat and showed the film at the seminary at a CBN event, Conservative Baptist Network event, and decided to show it anyway. Well, it's a few months have gone by. The film is getting out there in the grassroots of churches all over America, including Southern Baptists and other denominations are fans of the film. So, I mean, it is out there and people know about it. And so we're like, what? Why the pushback? And the problem is we could never get an answer. We couldn't get an answer as to why we couldn't show the film. And then the event organizer kind of said, well, if you don't want to come, we'll refund your sponsorship, but we really, really want Trevor to come speak. Is there any way you can make that happen? We'd already bought plane tickets. We already had stuff shipped out. We already had everything planned out to go. So I said, and the guy promised, we'll show your trailer throughout the entire event. We'll show your trailer and tell people to buy your film. We're like, fine, okay, we'll go. Trevor will speak. We'll send the team down. We'll, get word out about the film. At least they'll see the trailer and hear Trevor speak. Well, we get there. Well, I didn't personally go, but my team did. And I'm talking to them every hour, making sure things are going smoothly. Our team shows up, and then we found out that, we're no longer allowed to show the trailer even at this event. We're no longer allowed to show the trailer. And so I get a call right away, and they're like, what should we do? And I said, find Dr. Spradlin and try to find out what's going on. So Trevor Loudon and our PR guy, Chris Prosh, approached Mr. Spradlin to try to reason with him and try to get him to show the film. It was a very cordial, and he's like, will you reconsider? Will you let us show the film here? And Spradlin's like, absolutely not. No, we're not gonna show the film. And Trevor's like, why aren't you going to show the film? And Spradlin goes, we showed it 3 months ago. Now you have to understand, in the context of things, that was 3 months ago to a tiny group of people, about 20 people. And we're talking about a much larger event with many more people that are here who had never seen the film. So it's an entirely different audience, and it's an entirely different event put on by somebody else that's not CBN, and it's not Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary.
Right.
So our PR guy asks him then, he goes, are you getting pressure from people within the Southern Baptist Convention not to show the film? And Spradlin got a little miffed by it, but didn't say anything. And come to find out later, Spradlin actually asked the event organizer for Citizens for America to not have Trevor speak at all at the event while we're there. And so I send texts and I'm trying to, do things, and Chris and people. Well, Trevor ends up being allowed to speak, after we sponsored the event, showed up and had staff there and everything all ready to go.
Right.
They were kind enough to allow Trevor to speak. Mm-hmm. Well, leading up to the event, we had several people came to the booth and were saying that they couldn't wait to see the film, that they couldn't wait to watch the film at the event. No one, not even the event organizer, bothered to send an email or let people know at the event that the film was canceled and wasn't being shown.
Mm-hmm.
So when Trevor got up on stage, he felt it very necessary to say that the film wasn't being shown and to explain why the film wasn't being shown, and told who made the order to not show the film.
So he named Spradlin, right?
Yes.
In the footage that I saw. Okay.
Yeah, he named Spradlin, and then Timothy Pigg, who is directly connected with the Conservative Baptist Network. So prior to this event, there was a CBN event at the seminary. So a bunch of CBN guys stayed over for the next event. And Timothy Pigg took it upon himself to come up to the stage and try to take the mic away from Trevor.
Right. Well, so if I can just jump in for 1 second here. Sean Warwick says the SBC is a disgrace. What occurred was disgusting. Thank you very much for that, Sean. I appreciate your support. This is, I think Sean says it all. This really is disgraceful. It's a very, very disturbing thing. I did manage to do some legwork, and I have some statements from people that I'm going to share with you, Judd, to get your comment on it, because some people gave me different versions of what happened. Before we do that, I do want to introduce Ray Fava. Hello, Ray. How's it going? Ray is from Evangelical Dark Web. He really wanted to talk to you, Judd.
Hey, Ray.
What's going on?
Ray, yeah. So apparently he's a big fan of yours, Judd. So
yeah, that's right. I am
a big fan of his.
Oh, that's good to hear. I'm on the credits for Enemies Within the Church. Like, scroll way down towards the end, there's several names in the 4 columns or whatever. My name's somewhere on there.
Hey, well, it's the meeting of the minds. I get to be among 2 trailblazers. Well, okay, so it sounds like there's a number of different responses that I've heard. Okay, Sean Warwick has provided one which basically matches my own feeling, which is that this is it's a disgrace. The fact that there was any issue about you presenting a movie on a campus when you were paying to co-sponsor the event, is just outrageous. One narrative I've heard from several people is they feel that the issue wasn't so much that you were asked not to show the film. It was the fact that you were not told until the last minute. So how do you respond to that, Judd? I mean, would you have been okay with this if you had been told a month earlier that you were?
Yeah. Well, not okay with it. We wouldn't have been okay with it. We would not have been okay with it, and we would have backed out because we didn't buy our plane tickets. Travel arrangements weren't made. Trevor hadn't rerouted his entire schedule to line up speaking events that would line up with this one. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of scheduling, but a month out, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal. It would leave a lot of questions in my mind. It's like, okay, Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary courageous 1 minute, and then the next minute they're not. But really, it's not that surprising because we're dealing with institutional Southern Baptists,
right?
Who are courageous 1 minute and then not courageous the next. And I mean, what I'm saying is they already took a beating for showing the film once to a small group. Why in the world would you cancel it now with a larger group? And it was a political event. It's a conservative political event.
Right.
At Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary. And the film since then has already been out there, and a lot of people have know about it. And they actually traveled to that event to come see the film. But I think it's a disgrace that people weren't notified beforehand even at least a week out, because people actually came because they wanted to, see the film. It was like icing on the cake of what would have been a fantastic event had this, awful thing not have happened.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's one side of it. And I'm going to give you a couple more thoughts that I picked up from some people when I was asking around about what happened. Another comment that I made, and then I'm going to let Ray chime in. One person said that there were faculty who threatened to resign, that there were several faculty members who threatened to resign if the film was shown, and that forced the hand of the administration. Do you have any response to that?
You asking Ray?
No,
yeah,
I'm asking Judd, and then I'm going to ask Ray. But first, Judd.
Well, any person worth their salt in Christianity would say good riddance.
Yeah.
Good. We don't have to fire you, and you're going to resign? That's the best news that we could ever ask for.
Right. Yeah, and I can't think of
oh my word.
I can't think of an employee that is more replaceable than a Baptist seminary professor. Speaking as someone who was fired from a Baptist seminary, and I mean, Southwestern didn't even burp with me gone. I mean, it's pretty much, it's interesting. Okay, so Ray, Fava, yeah.
I just want to say one thing. Spradlin, if that's really the case, you had a way out. You had a way out to get rid of some of these people.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Now let me ask Ray, because Ray was one of the first people who wrote in response to this. I think you had something posted within like hours of it. So Ray, what is your response to the whole thing? And from
I wouldn't say I was the first, but I do think that I provided a lot more context than some of the others.
Yeah.
Especially when it came to Randy Adams, tying it back to Randy Adams being not cool with showing the film back in November.
Or Randy Stinson.
Right? Randy or Adam Greenway. I'm sorry.
Randy Adams good. Greenway bad.
Yeah.
Adam Greenway and then Randy
Adams,
Stinson. You
fantastic, wonderful man.
Yes.
Greenway bad.
Adam Greenway. I don't know why. But he totally disliked them showing the film, and then in November, and then apparently now it's you got to tie that context into it, because that matters a lot in my opinion. I did receive one comment on my article about how the film the crowd had diminished to like 55 people or so, and this was probably around the time Trevor got up and was kicked off. So that's what they said, and the conference was almost over. I don't know how exactly the conference was readjusted, but I also thought the comment that I received, I was kind of pushing back on the assertion that Mid-America is perhaps compromised, at least at a leadership level. I felt that comment and that pushback that I received was a little moot, because the fact that they banned the film from being shown at a third-party event being hosted at their campus is bad enough. I don't see why they felt the need to assert that much control over someone who was renting out their facilities.
Right. Well, that's just vintage Southern Baptist life. It's because someone didn't want the film to be shown, so they called Spradlin. They pull whatever strings they can, and they work on so many levels. They have direct hostility. They have people like David Baumgartner, who are their little attack dogs in the kind of gutter press, and then on top of it, they call behind the scenes, and then they do things behind the scenes to get your friends to turn on you, etc. So they do all these things. They did not want that film to be shown, and so my question to you, Judd, is Mid-America Baptist Seminary, I believe it was founded by Adrian Rogers. Is that correct? One of the men of the conservative resurgence. It's not one of the 6 official Southern Baptist seminaries. This creates some confusion. It is a seminary that is linked to the Southern Baptist Convention, but it was always supposed to be a little bit of a maverick seminary. I mean, even I think from the beginning of its founding. And people have looked at it as a place where the conservatives were going to be welcome, where this woke revolution was not going to happen. I know that when Patterson was driven out of Southwestern, some of the top professors from Southwestern became exiled at Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary. Right. And that actually strengthened their identity as this conservative stronghold against all this. But what are we left to make of that reputation after this? This is very disheartening, because for people who were hoping against all hope, this was the last hope, and then now this happened.
No, it's if you compromise on something like this and try to exert your authority on something like this, it really shows how weak you are. And I mean, with how bad things are getting out there and how hard the enemy is attacking and how much they're going after people, we are on the conservative side. We made the film that exposes the heart of the matter and what's going on within the SBC and other denominations and within just conservative Christendom in the United States. We expose the Marxist movements that are happening there, and it is a tool for those to use to actually take things back. But the problem is, and it was very, 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 very revealing when Timothy Pig went up and tried to remove Trevor from the podium. And I don't know if you guys could hear it in the audio. If you listen to the audio, know what Timothy Pig says while he's trying to take the mic away from Trevor? Don't criticize the institution. Don't criticize the institution. That is a fundamental flaw with these institutionalized leaders and these institutionalized men that call themselves pastors and Christian leaders. They are more concerned about protecting the institution than they are the gospel. They're more concerned about protecting the institution than standing for truth. And that is why they shut our film down. And that is why they tried taking the mic away from Trevor Loudon. Mm-hmm. It's because we criticized the institution for not standing for truth while we were in that institution.
Right.
It is about prestige. It is about protecting the seminary, the institution. Guys, the scriptures don't really give a rat's rear end about seminaries or institutions.
Right. In fact, they kind of warn against it about the.
They warn against those kind of things, and especially institutions are good as long as if they are following the scriptures and doing what they're supposed to be doing according to the scriptures. But when an institution becomes bigger than the scriptures and an institution becomes more important than what the Bible says, they need to either be gone or they need to be completely reformed so they get back to following the word of God. And and what we see is just a bunch of Baptist sycophants.
Yeah, well, they're doing what Baptists have gotten famous for doing, where they're all so financially or reputationally dependent on the mainstay of the institutions that it's really hard. You have to go all the way out to the fringes to get people who are independent. And on that, I just want to give Ray Fava a chance. If you have any questions for Judd now that he's on, and I know that Ray has been covering a lot of this stuff on the evangelical dark web, if there's any questions you had.
Ask me anything you want, Mr. Fava.
Yeah.
What has been the the Citizens for America conference? Or that's the organization. What has been their response to the events?
Nothing.
Post
haven't heard a word.
Okay, so they haven't responded at all to Trevor, the incident with Trevor, and nothing from them. Wow.
Nope. He was. I think the organizers caught between a rock and a hard place, but
yeah, because they probably want to come back there. At one point, I imagine.
I wouldn't want to go back there when they try hijacking an event that I would be trying to put on. I would never want to go back to a venue that tries to hijack an event that I'm paying to do. The other thing is, but I mean, Chris Hughes is a great guy. I believe what he's trying to do is absolutely amazing. And it was a great conference from everything that I saw leading up to the debacle with Trevor. But the problem is that he was caught between a rock and a hard place. And one of the things that Mid-America misunderstood, and Dr. Spradlin and Timothy Pig and Scott Coulter and a lot of these other guys, is that we are not pushovers. We are not pushovers. If you mess with us and try to play games with us and you don't give us straight answers, or at least be honest and truthful of where you stand and where you're at, we're going to fight.
Well, and if they don't, here's the thing: if they don't give you a straight answer, then I think they implicitly give us leave to come up with theories of our own as to what
speculate
happened.
and come up with theories on our own. But
to speculate, yeah.
But the whole fact of the matter is had we been invited and then just disinvited, but this is a different scenario. We paid money to sponsor the event, and there was an agreement that we would show the film.
Well, to me, in my mind, I don't know how Ray feels about this, but in my mind, given that they are a Southern Baptist seminary, given that their history is tied to the conservative resurgence.
But here's the thing now. They're saying now that they're not a Southern Baptist institution.
Right. Well, that's technically, I think it's true, but not true, because they're not one of the 6 that are supported by the cooperative program or whatever.
But it's run by Southern Baptists.
Yeah,
and
but
everyone that's running the seminary goes to a Southern Baptist church, and even Spradlin has a Southern Baptist church at the seminary.
Right. Yeah.
And but I want to say also that if you go to a Southern Baptist church from the student side, there's a discount for that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
well, there you go.
they have some. Yeah, it's not a super expensive seminary, but if you wanted to go there, it's not really one you could do online, because unless you're vocationally involved in ministry. Like, this is a seminary with relatively high standards for students in terms of how much ministry work you need to be doing while also attending. So, it's a very rigorous seminary at that. So,
well, here's my thing is, given the fact that it is a Southern Baptist seminary, given the fact that its history is tied to the conservative resurgence, and given the fact that it is now riding on its reputation as being the counterbalance against the corruption in the 6 official Southern Baptist seminaries, they should not have canceled the film. No, they need to get behind the project. They need to get behind, because this is not just fighting for their church, it's also fighting for their profession. They're putting all this money into the profession of running a seminary, and it doesn't mean anything if you're not willing to actually do the kind of, in the United States, institutions of higher learning are given the ability to self-regulate. That's what the tenure system and the peer review system is based on. And so if you don't want to participate in that, then I think that's a serious problem.
Well, here's the thing. The film was made to shed light, shed truth, expose the problems in the church so people could rise up, identify the enemies. We identified the enemies for them, and we gave them enough ammunition to go fight this war. And that's even within conservative people within these institutions to go fight this war. So what does the supposed conservative seminary do? It throws us under the bus, tries to cancel our film, sends a message to conservatives that are looking to send their kids to a seminary that says, well, maybe we should reconsider sending our kids to a seminary where the leadership is spineless.
Right.
Really, I mean, staff is policy, and staff educates the students. What message did they just send to all the students? What do they send to all the parents that are looking to send their kids to that seminary? If you're a conservative and you have a kid, you want to send them to seminary, you just said the message, we're weak. Your kid may or may not get a conservative biblical education here.
Well, and you know what disturbs me about the report that I heard, that there were several professors who threatened to resign. It is so sad, because when Southwestern got taken over by Greenway and that whole movement, why didn't anyone join together and make a movement like that? Or why wasn't that ever a consideration? Instead, the professors at Southwestern just sat there idly while everyone got fired. It was painful for me to go on Twitter for the year and a half after I got fired, because I saw all these people that I remember sitting there doing nothing while I got fired, while other people got fired, and then they themselves got fired later on. And it took all the strength in the world for me not to go on Twitter and be like, what was that about? Why does our side show so little gumption and the other side can jump into any of it? Also, I did want to address Sean Warwick's point that there was North Greenville University also was a similar. I think there are a lot of Baptist colleges that have that discount situation.
Well, North Greenville has its own issues.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Scott McFarlane? Does that sound familiar?
Scott, well, he says, Sean Warwick says Judd has info on North Greenville University. So I think that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, let me look it up real quick. I just want to make sure I get the right name.
Yeah.
You got your files.
I mean, well, while you're looking at that, I'm just going to ask Ray something. Ray, is it some kind of psychological weakness on our side? Where does it come from, the imbalance, where a handful of professors at Mid-America Baptist can force the whole campus to vomit out a group of speakers and a movie because it's conservative, but you'll never see our side banding together? We can't even question whether Karen Swallow Pryor should be teaching, at Southeastern. Why is it that we don't have that gumption?
I think you got a lot of peacetime leaders in a war situation. So you got a lot of people that don't exactly know what the situation is now. And so when you have a conflict or you have an obvious wolf, they don't know how to react to it because they don't see this as a war situation.
Right.
And maybe the other alternative is they're just trying to be nice.
Mm-hmm.
And they're more concerned with being nicer than God than they are with actually cleaning house.
Yeah, that's okay. So anyway, I got it. North Greenville University. Okay. If you want to know what's going on at North Greenville University, you need to talk to Alex McFarlane and what happened to him. Alex McFarlane, North Greenville took a big grant from the Kern Family Foundation. Following the grant from the Kern Family Foundation, Alex and they also hired a new president of North Greenville University when they got the Kern grant, and he's the guy that brought the grant in. Immediately following that, he wanted to change everything around and start bringing in Gospel Coalition, Russell Moore, Tim Keller material, and Alex McFarlane tried using his position and weight around the university to say, no, we do not need that garbage here. It's not orthodox. It's wrong. It's Marxism. And he tried fighting against it, and he got fired a week later.
Mm.
So North Greenville University is now slowly implementing all the Gospel Coalition nonsense, right, the Marxist stuff, all the Kern Family Foundation things. But this was so you talk to Alex McFarlane, see if he'll tell you his story about what happened. But I'm just name dropping it out here because, it's bad.
Right. Well, Sean says he was forced out because he refused to teach CRT. All the theological conservatives were forced out. This seems like the story that we see all over the country. It's very sad. Yep. One of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention, Judd, and then get your reaction to is I'm working on an article on all of this for American Thinker. So I did a lot of research. I went into the JSTOR. I read about 60 articles. These are in academic journals about the Southern Baptist Convention. And of course, this is told mostly through the perspective of the moderates and the liberals, because JSTOR is going to have all these scholars from places like Baylor, where the sympathy is naturally going to be with the moderates, not with what they call fundamentalists.
Correct.
But there was one book that I came across by Kell called Exiled, where he gave extensive interviews with 29 people who lost their jobs in the conservative resurgence because they were liberal and they were purged from their jobs. And what was interesting to me was that was so similar to a lot of the work that you're doing in terms of trying to uncover all of the nastiness, all of the cruelty, the inhumanity that goes on with these purges. And it's ironic that the moderate and liberal side brought so much human attention to their own side suffering, and then they're engaging in the exact same tactics. How does that happen? Because Exiled came out in 2008. And so it took them less than 10 years to just basically do the same thing that they felt was such an injustice to them.
None of this has been done using the Bible. None of this has been done in a Christian manner. It's institutional, and you got one side jockeying for power and the other side jockeying for power.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Bible in this at all. Bobby, I mean, look at how they treated you. Sorry, Robert. Look at how they treated you.
Yeah.
Did they go about handling your situation in any kind of biblical manner whatsoever?
No, and it
you.
was the same
That's
thing
what I'm saying.
with dozens of people who were fired. I mean, I told you the story when they did the firing this was before I got fired, the first round of firing. They had a big banquet. They brought all the trustees. We brought our spouses, but let everyone know that a third of the faculty was going to get fired. So they had us having dinner, all competing. This is going to get fired, and basically trying to get us to sink each other. And it worked. The department that I was in was a very collegial until Greenway came in, and then everybody was spying on each other and snitching on each other. It's very unbiblical.
So what it is it's a business. It is a business. Yeah. It's an industry. It's an institution. It is not biblical. And this is why these institutions are corrupt, because they have gone away from the Bible, using the scriptures to run things instead of using it as a business in a way to do these things. And that's the biggest issue. And the other problem is there's no honesty.
Right.
There's no honesty in the way we approach the film from the very beginning, and talking to people, interviewing people, getting information, and letting people know that we, hey, your organization, we're doing a film about you, and this is what we found. Blah 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 blah. You know, found this and this and this and this and this and this. Would you like to address it?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to answer this? And they would never honestly give us an honest answer.
Yeah,
they would never be truthful with us. And these are some of the biggest Christian organizations in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And the leadership could not tell the truth and be honest. They had to be political and try to find some way to spin it.
Yeah.
And that is the problem. We don't have people running these institutions that are actually being guided by the scriptures and guided by the Bible.
Yeah. How does all of this look to you, Ray? I'm wondering what's going through Ray's mind, because Judd and I have been in the trenches together through all of it. Like, looking at this from an outsider, do we sound like we're crazy, me and Judd, or just some bitter old outcasts or something? What does it all look like to you?
It doesn't sound crazy. It just sounds like they're trying to draw attention to suffering that their side endured during the conservative resurgence, and it's like, this is just this is spiritual warfare, and they were casualties, and now they've flipped the deck on us, and that's kind of what's going on. It's the same thing, and the morality is really about the direction, whether it's for scripture or against scripture is really what determines whether it's a moral tactic or not. And to some degree, our side did not do a good job at voicing, you were fired, and a lot of people reported on that, but and then Southern Seminary the following year, Russell Fuller,
right?
And,
yeah, Russell Fuller.
3 other people were fired from there. So but there's a lot more instances like Russell Fuller. He's a bit of a firebrand himself, as far as upstarting his own thing, and he had like John Harris, and he was also with Enemies Within the Church, right? He was in that documentary, or
yes.
So there is a lot of there was some ability to tell that story there, but a lot of other stories just fall through the cracks, and we don't do a good job at. I don't think we don't have the infrastructure, and you look at good conservative news gatherers, there aren't that many.
No.
Christian Post is heavily institutionalized.
Right.
Gospel Christianity Today is a left-wing rag. Religion News Service, just forget it, and Baptist Pravda organizations, just forget it also.
Well, the part of the problem is that we would cover more of this stuff. We'd like to cover more of these happenings and the firings and more of these stories going on. And we're trying to do that with Wikipedia and some of the other infrastructure that we're working on building. The problem is that some of these guys that get fired either signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, or they're afraid they won't get a job if they come out and speak the truth. For every person that came in our film, there's about 100 people that were afraid to come on the film that would give us information and tell us stories and talk about what's going on. And the problem is that if we come out and just say, this happened to so-and-so, this happened to so-and-so, and they don't have the guts to back up their own story, it doesn't do any good. It's best told from their words, their mouth, to share their experiences. It's not up to us to try to share everyone's experience.
Yeah, it goes from hearsay to testimony.
Right. These guys have to stand up and talk themselves. We will be happy to give them a platform and a voice to do so, but they need to do it themselves.
Well, one thing I can say is Ray brought up infrastructure, and I hope that one of the things that I hope people take away from this is that the work that Judd is doing, also the work that Ray's doing, this is the kind of stuff that we need institutional backing, not institutional, but we need financial backing for, we need social backing for. This is, if Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary is not going to let this discussion take place, there has to be some infrastructure where we can share the information. It's great that Elon Musk is buying Twitter, but it's also, we also need to support the platforms where people can do this kind of work. I think that ideally, Judd, you would go and make the next one, Enemies Within the Seminary or something, that you could use all this to build on a growing narrative. And so I hope that people will support you in ways that are material and tangible.
Well, that's all we can pray for. But the thing is, we're doing everything we can to get the word out. We're not dormant. We're really building up an infrastructure, and we got big things coming over the next couple of months. As people buy the film, it helps fund our infrastructure.
Right.
This is the other thing. If we could put out more material that people are interested in purchasing, these things go to help the infrastructure of what we're trying to do. And that's why we charge for the film. Everyone's like, just give away the film for free. Give it away the film for free. Then it goes on YouTube, it gets buried, and that's it.
Right. Yeah.
There's something to be said when somebody actually purchases something. When they purchase it, they'll actually go watch it and not watch it for 30 seconds and then turn it off.
Well, there's also a million different projects that people take on of this nature, because there's a certain market niche that people try to capitalize on, where they go after our constituency of people who are disaffected by the wokeness. And we need to get behind the people who actually deliver, who can execute the product, who will stand by it, and who will get behind distributing it. And this is a good example of it. Yeah.
And from other people's judgment, from what I hear, people tell me the film doesn't suck.
That's good. It's a good film.
People say the film doesn't suck, and they say it's well produced. Right. It looks really good. The audio's good. The graphical content, the music choices, everything else. This is the difference between a real documentary than someone just going out and grabbing a little camera and putting something on YouTube. That's the difference between a professional documentary and then what I call a YouTube doc.
Right.
And if we want to compete and show that our side can put out good material, it takes financing, it takes an infrastructure, and it takes backing to do those kind of projects.
Yeah.
I mean, just to use an example, it's not like our side's incapable of doing this type of thing. Look, how many people donated to The Chosen? Like, it's insane how many people donated to that film project, and I honestly think The Chosen sucks. Like, it's horrendous.
But it looks good. It's got decent acting. It's a professionally well done production. Whether or not you like the content as far as the storyline,
I don't think they didn't do the research on the time period. They didn't do that type of stuff. But it's like, we could have spent that same amount of money on real Christian content. It's not like our site doesn't have the capacity to do this. Is the point that I'm making. And there's a lot more that could be done. And hope.
Let's just be honest. The Chosen is getting a lot of Mormon money.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
that's
but that's what I
true.
mean. That's what I mean. We put our money behind. We'll talk about this. I know you have to go, Judd, but if Ray can stay on, there's more discussion to be had about it. I know you're so busy because you're taking care of all this stuff. But thank you so much, Judd, for joining us. We're going to get to some of these questions in the comments section, but first, I just want to put these captions here so people know that what's going on right now is Judd Saul's film was censored at Mid-American Baptist Theological Seminary. Very disappointing incident there, and you can get more information about his film at www.enemieswithinthechurch.com. God bless you. Okay, Judd?
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye. So you were talking about Chosen, and here's my thing, the way that I look at this. I think that conservatives put all of their money behind projects like that. They want to be really safe, and then they make themselves harmless, which makes them ineffective. They're scared of difficult content that they don't know what to do with themselves. Now, there are a couple of questions. I don't know if you have any answers to any of these questions, Ray. So these are interesting. One of them, Berean Babe, says, has Dr. Mike responded to the debacle about Trevor? I guess that would be Mike Spalding. Is that correct? I think she's talking about Mike Spalding. I haven't heard. Or is it Mike? Who's
Spradlin?
Mike, I'm not sure.
But Michael Spradlin is the head of MA BTS.
She's saying yes, but I'm not sure if she means yes, Michael Spradlin or Mike Spalding. Or at any rate, we have not heard anything about any of the Dr. Mikes responding to the debacle about Trevor. I'm sure that some response will probably come down the pike, but we haven't. Berea Babe has another question, which is interesting. She's talking about the president.
Yeah,
the president.
And, it's probably best for him to just pretend like it didn't happen. If he's truly is compromised, that would be the tactic to take.
Yeah. I know that Dr. Mike has certainly not made a comment from what I understand. He has, other than I think through proxies, if I'm not mistaken, people have put out some of these responses to those media contexts that we know. So that's how I got the story about there were several professors who threatened to resign, etc. Some of the different perspectives that people had in there. Now, Brian Babe had another question, which I'm going to ask
I really
Ray.
like this question.
What's your take on Hall leaving Southern Baptist Theological Seminary for Biola? Okay, so just a little bit of background.
Hall, the provost of SBTS, who famously said how he's a racist.
Right.
I mean, there's so many self-owns there. Biola hiring an self-avowed racist. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a self-own. Biola is really liberal.
I think all of these Christian colleges, even the ones that they were. I remember a couple years ago going to this really underground meeting for conservative Christian academics in California. We met in Berkeley. It was this room that was very secretive. No one wanted to have their names on any kind of attendance sheet because everyone was being really secretive. And all of the Christian colleges were there, Westmont, etc., these different Biola. And, the truth is that they were already just so desperate to get accepted by the mainstream academy that I think we lost those institutions a long time ago. What do you think, Ray?
Yeah, I don't know when they were lost. Like, I can't put a date on that, but it's like, it's like I can't send kids there. Like, this place is nuts. And, I think they had a professor recently talk about, like, I think it was this school that Biola that had like a professor that talked about how critical race theory is sanctification, is part of sanctification.
Yeah,
like, it's something really whack like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm not a fan of their apologetics either with Sean McDowell. That's his name, right? Popular YouTube channel, but popular apologetics ministry. I'm not a fan of his either.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's Sean Warwick says they just shift the deck chairs, as in the ship is sinking, so you're just moving around the chairs on the Titanic. I can get behind that metaphor. You have Biola. Another one is King's College in New York City. You know, where Dinesh D'Souza used to be the president. That's another one.
Yeah, they have like a lot of AND campaign people, right?
Yeah, there's
Follow
just
that
it's
one?
all, and then Grove City College now they're in the middle of their own issue because the Grove City College, the trustees tried to put out a report. Okay, here's an interesting one. I want to hear Ray's thoughts on this. What about CBN? That's the Conservative Baptist
Yeah.
Network, platforming Robert Jeffress.
Jeffress, yeah. Yeah, so man, who's that dude on Twitter that's just complaining about the Conservative Baptist Network and stuff like that, and he's attacking them, and he's virtue signaling about how he supports Bart Barber because Tom Askell brings the CBN to the table. I was like, what's your issue with the CBN? And I guess he references their conference in which, I guess he had an issue with some sort of speaker there. Didn't mention who, but I would have had an issue with Robert Jeffress because Robert Jeffress is a jab peddler and a big pharma shill. And I think he's just one of those people out there like Franklin Graham that wants to hump Trump's leg. And like that's literally how I see these people.
Yeah, I think that Jeffress, he was one of the first people to stab Trump in the back. Remember when after the election, he rushed out there and said, Trump, you should concede immediately. Yeah, he's got a lot of things like that.
It's weird, but then when he's on his way to get vaccinated, he's bragging about how he's got a phone call from Donald Trump. It's like, I don't know. I remember watching that video.
I think it's, my answer to Brian Babe's question is I think it fits in with the larger issue with the Conservative Baptist Network. If you look at their board of directors, it has Mike Huckabee. It has Tony Perkins, the head of the Family Research Center Council. It's got Jenna Ellis. Isn't Jenna Ellis on it too, or she's somehow tied to it?
I don't.
She just came out against DeSantis. Is she not on it? Let me see if I can look up
the steering council that has like 70 people on it.
Or how many people are on? Yeah, who's on that?
So there's like 70 people on the steering committee. Or steering council, whatever they call it. There's like 70 people. It's way too many people to be an effective body, in my opinion. They should just call it like the assembly, like a general assembly. And it's just like they clearly give it to their friends. I don't think Jenna Ellis is part of it, but
well, Michael Spradlin's on it, the president of Mid-America, Phil Roberts, former president of Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, Tony Perkins, Mike Huckabee.
Now, was Tony Perkins the one who like caved on the vax mandate?
Tony Perkins?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but he runs the Values Voters Summit, and I'm going to tell you that I've seen some things going on in those quarters that are, it's not as reliable as people think it is. Rod Martin is on the steering committee. I think, though, that it includes Ken Starr was in their circle at one point. Let me see if I can find this. Conservative Baptist Network, the steering council. It's got Anthony Allen, who's the president of Hannibal LaGrange University, Mark Ballard, who's the president of Northeastern Baptist in Vermont, Vodi Bakum, Dennis Baxley, who's a Florida state senator, Stoney Benfield, who's the senior pastor at Prospect Baptist Church. Lee Brand, you know him. He's another person who's tied to Mid-America.
Lee Brand or Lee Brand Jr.?
Lee Brand. There's no junior there.
Okay. Lee Brand Jr. is the first vice president of the Southern Baptist Convention.
I think that's him.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's him. Amir Kaner, who's the president of Truett McConnell. Let me see this. Kevin Cochran, he was one of those poster boys for religious liberty because he lost his job. Remember, he was a fireman or whatever. It just feels like Scott Bolter and then his wife Sherelle Bolter, Preston Condra, Chad Conner. A lot of the people on their steering council, to me, it seems that they are mainstream Republican politics, as far as I can tell. That seems to be the way that they're rolling, especially with Mike Huckabee on there. There's Chris Hughes, Peggy Jeffries. So I think that what you're going to get is from the CBN, kind of an answer to your question. Yeah, someone said neocons all. Yeah, that's how I would. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of go with that. What say you, Ray, in terms of the future of the Conservative Baptist Network? Does it?
I think they have an out of date operating system. And it kind of goes into what you were just talking about, where there's a lot of, I don't even want to say mainstream, but I guess mainstream, but like Republican voter, but the low info stream of the Republican voter, not even like, the ones that are more aware of the issues and, frauds and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your Fox News crowd, I guess.
Yeah, that's how I would describe it. It's basically your Fox News viewers, the people who still rush to read something from the Family Research Council or even the Heritage Foundation. Of course, they share with us a frustration with the wokeness, but they're institutional in their own way. Yeah, here's Tony Perkins, the president of the Family Research Council.
Okay, Family Research Council. I'm thinking of the guy that was in charge. I was thinking of the guy that was in charge of focusing on the family. I think it was him.
Yeah,
But I could be wrong.
Daly, and then Phil Roberts. I think
Daly, yeah, Jim Daly. That was
Jim
that's
Daly.
definitely it.
Yeah, he's not on this list, but you still see a lot of the same. This is the guy, Michael Spradlin.
Yeah.
He's the president of Mid-America. He's the guy who's in the midst of the controversy right now because it was his seminary that basically, made the call to ban the film. So what's your ultimate take on this, Ray? I mean, how big of a deal do you think it is that Mid-America pulled Trevor Loudon off the stage?
I actually think it's more significant. It says more about the Conservative Baptist Network than it does about the seminary. And I think it's more of a red flag on the CBN because I actually think the CBN's a bigger deal than the seminary. Truth be honest, or if truth be told, I think that the CBN's a bigger deal because that's basically your movement. If the Southern Baptist Convention gets super bad, they have enough people there and evident infrastructure to form their own denomination. So I see them as larger than the seminary. So I think it's more of a red flag on their part. And it's just another vote of no confidence in the Conservative Baptist Network's ability to get the job done, to fulfill their own mission.
Yeah, Sean Warwick just posted a comment saying that he doesn't really see Tom Askell being able to get much headway against these things. I have to agree with that.
At least he's not on the CBN though. I don't think he's on there.
Yeah, he's not. I think CBN has kind of signaled that that's their man if in the race between him and Bart Barber. But one thing I've noticed is that not a lot of people are taking on Bart Barber, and this is very, for me, this is very troubling. The fact that Bart Barber is going to be running for SBC president in basically a month and a half. And no one is really trying to get the message out to the people in the pews that that is a dangerous choice, which I believe he is. And there's a lot of stuff that you could bring up, questions you could pose to Bart Barber. For instance, how did he handle that? All those firings at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary when he was a trustee and probably the most vocal trustee. And he had a lot of power over that. He was the one who went on the stage at the 2018 convention in Dallas and he really pulled the wind out of Paige Patterson's sails. So he did that. I think what is that the Conservative Baptist Network has a lot of people who are very concerned about wokeness, but they're still friends with a lot of those people. And they still, they're not going to feel comfortable with people attacking Bart Barber. So I feel like it's a repeat of the Mike Stone candidacy. Would you agree with that, Ray? Remember when Mike Stone was trying to become the president and it was
his messaging was not, it was a peacetime messaging.
Yeah.
And Sean Warwick just made the comment that Askell was too nice per se. And I certainly hope that's the case. I actually think he might be too political. So he's trying to make everything a 3D chess calculation instead of just going with the truth and seeing where it leads. I think that's that seems to be Askell's issue. And, I guess the Conservative Baptist Network was like, read the room. But
right. Well,
I
they're filled with the people who are definitely very political, and I stand corrected. Jenna Ellis is not on that council. That I'm thinking of the Liberty University think tank that was there, the Falkirk Center.
the
She
Falkirk
was,
Center,
yeah, she was part of
and
that.
I have no idea why she was invited to be part of that, just because like what court case has she won? Like, she tried taking credit for the John MacArthur lawsuit when
Right.
I believe it was the Thomas More Society that handled that, and what's her relationship with them?
Right. Well, I think that
They're
she
part of Trump's failed election
yeah,
lawyers.
yeah. Well, I think that's it. I think that it's basically, this is the Trump movement, and these are all reluctant Trump supporters. I think a lot of them were people who weren't necessarily going to jump on Trump's bandwagon, but they did when they saw that he was taking off and really moving forward. So, well, Ray, thanks a lot. It's interesting. I really want to thank you for writing about what happened at Mid-America Baptist so quickly. What do you think is going to, what's the story that's going to be told in a year about this?
If I had to take a guess, again, I last time I came on here, I talked about, Robert the Bruce and how he just stayed back and calculated that William Wallace wasn't going to win. So, betrayed him accordingly.
Right.
And, because that's kind of where I see this, we're going to show up late, see where the armies are. And, if the bad guys are going to win, we're going to pull back. And I think we're just going to pull back, conserve our own forces. Because the Southern Baptists can, like, the army that is on the field isn't serious.
Yeah, I think in the end it will have proved good for our friend Judd Saul, because I think that what ends up happening is there can be no doubt in the minds of all the people who surrounded that film that institutions are not going to be Santa Claus in this. It's not going to be an easy win to just get some big institutional backing. Anybody with a platform, anybody with money, anybody with obligations is going to be really hard to drag into battle. And if you can get that message to the people, that's the most important thing,
Yeah.
So
completely agree.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, thank you. And can you just share your website real quick? So let me see if I can put that in the captions. It's evangelicaldarkweb.com, right?
.org.
.org. Okay.
Someone
so
took the .com, so I made the .org. evangelicaldarkweb.org, and you can subscribe to that RSS feed there. That's completely free, and it just gives you the emails in your inbox on the articles that are written. A lot of articles every day. There's usually something, except maybe Friday or Saturday there might be a gap, but otherwise there's always going to be something there. And you can just subscribe, read the articles. I do a lot of research on like particular false teachers or potential false teachers. Not everyone's a false teacher that I do research on. That audience gives answers. And speaking of the Southern Baptist Convention, next one that I'm publishing is the one on David Jeremiah. So that should be pretty interesting. Because you don't hear people critique him at all. But he's big name for sure. So that'll be
there's a lot to look at there.
Yeah.
Berean Babe asked, is Pastor Gordon part of the SBC? No, he's not. He is identified as more charismatic. And actually, I have been, I've heard people push back against including him because there are Baptists who don't like charismatics. So that's kind of an interesting entanglement there. But thank you very much for that.
Pastor Gordon. Oh, Kerry Gordon, right?
Kerry Gordon, yes. I assume she's talking about Kerry Gordon. Yeah, no, he's not. He's charismatic. So
yeah, that's what I understood when he was preaching in the film.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I will see you. I'll stay in touch, Ray. And thank you so much for the people who showed up for the discussion. And let's just all keep Judd Saul in our prayers.